development.
Are you reorganizing because the NDC lost the election?
Well, not because even if we had won, I believe that there would have been the need for us to take a fresh look at ourselves. Perhaps reorganization is one broad term, which encompasses almost everything. But I think there's a need for some clinical analysis of where we have come from and where we want to go. Clearly, we did have problems. Honestly, when you have a party which is in government and which loses the elections, it tells you that there is something wrong somewhere. Therefore, if you want to put your finger on it, there's nothing wrong with it. I believe that it's only logical.
What are the things wrong with the NDC?
Well, we are still in the process of reorganization. And clearly, I mean, if I wouldn't go public and tell you what our weaknesses are, certainly not. But whatever we find that has to be mended, we'll go ahead and do it.
Do you have traces of apathy in some of the members of the NDC, especially now that you've lost?
Well, I believe that, NDC is a microcosm of our society. And in much the same way as some people in Ghana are apathetic, one expects and finds that there are also some individuals in NDC who are apathetic for one reason or the other. So it's nothing really strange.
Some people say that they are stomach activists there, which refers to people who are actually selfish. Have you seen some of those in your party?
If you have any such person, then they really do not belong to NDC. Then they really are not committed to the NDC. And they obviously will have no place in the NDC setup.
But have you seen some?
Well, I'm yet to come across people.
And when you do, would you go public about it?
Not at all. I mean, joining a party is a voluntary thing. If a person joins a party, and people join parties for different reasons. If a person joins a party because of his own selfish interests, well, I'm not going to go public and say that this man has joined. After all, at the end of the day, it's the votes which matter. But we will find that the principles governing the party are such that persons with those characteristics will usually not last long.
But what if, let's say in the past, just before the election, it is some of their actions or inactions that resulted in your defeat?
Well, I believe that, their colleagues also will have found out, what were the causes of the defeat. And we are looking at ourselves. And we are all under a broad searchlight. And therefore, if we think that some of these negative tendencies affected the results, I believe that it's only proper that we try to correct them, no matter who is involved.
Professor Mills, can you explain why the National Democratic Congress has the Volta region as its stronghold?
Well, I don't know what kind of explanation. I mean, NPP has Ashanti as their stronghold. It depends on people's choices, people's objectives, people's visions. After Freedom Association is open to all. So I really do not think that there should be any particular reasons for that.
Do you see a ring of tribalism around this, that the NDC has its stronghold in the Volta region, and by extension the NPP having its stronghold in the Ashanti region? Do you see a ring of tribalism around it?
I have always said that where you decide to go on an expedition or an exploration, whatever you want to find, you will find it. Yes. But if a lot of people from a particular area have joined a particular party, it may well be that the objectives of that particular society that they have joined are such that they reflect their own desires and needs and then concerns. So it is natural, therefore, that they will gravitate towards that particular party. I know that this country for a very, very long time, I mean, I grew up in an institution where tribalism was unknown. You never cared to find out where a person came from. And I think that if we begin to fund tribalism, we'll find that it will become a monster, which in the end will devour many of us. I think it is important, therefore, that we think positively about these tendencies.
Right, now let's look at something a little bit different. Yes, the NDC lost the election. It's 9 long months now. There's a new party or government in place, the NPP government. What is your assessment of this government in the past 9 months?
Oh, I believe that the current government must be assessed against the background of the promises which they made. And in any case, do not think that my assessment is going to be sacrosanct. It's going to be taken by everybody. That is why I've not rushed out with an assessment. But we have commented as a party on various aspects of their governance. Mind you, they did talk about the economy, what they would do about the economy. They accuse us of mismanagement, etc., etc. Well, the ordinary person can see what is happening. It underscores one fact. Managing a nation is not easy. And indeed, I think when there was a write-up on the former governor and then trying to come out with some of his achievements and successes. And indeed, when I read it, I thought that it was something that I had said about the economy at the time when we were campaigning.
Which was what?
Oh, the inflation was brought down. The erosion in the value of the cedi within 1998 and 1999, when we were hit by the world shocks in the economy, was very minimal. That cocoa prices went down by almost half, gold, and they were acknowledging these facts. The government also talked about education, that the fees were unreasonably high. They talked about trying to pay people a living wage, and then healthcare, cash and carry. Well, let me simply say that it is for the ordinary people of this country to decide for themselves, to assess the government. I don't want to influence anybody one way or the other. Be realistic, look at things on the ground. But it's very interesting that in today's graphic, I see that bold headlines, 60% to teach in rural areas. Now, it's most ironical. During the elections, when I suggested that some of our colleagues who were talking about lack of employment, I thought that there was one green area, I myself am a teacher, which they could exploit. They brought an advert, and I believe that some of the people who featured in that advert are probably among the national servicemen who are going to teach in the rural areas. Now, what is dignifying about this? When indeed I was castigated for having suggested that they go into this noble profession of teaching. Well, all that I'm saying is that we say in Fante, Ankobia Esewanko. Yes, now you are in the saddle. You must go through the same pains that we had to experience. Now you can see that it's one thing making promises and another thing getting to fulfill those promises. We wish them all the best.
So, Professor Mills, what are some of the promises given by the NPP which you believe they will not be able to fulfill?
Oh, no. I don't want to be a soothsayer. Certainly not. I wish them well. You are asking me about my assessment now.
Yes.
And yet that is what I've said. It is possible. But at the end of the 4 years, people will judge them by what they've been able to do. I do not want to sit down here and say that I know they can't do this, they can't do that. No.
And how about the NDC itself? You have come a long way. You have had experience. Did you give some promises that you couldn't fulfill, and for what reasons?
Oh, clearly. We had a long-term program. This country is not perfect. There are areas with very high levels of poverty. You look at our roads, especially the railway. You take Sekondi Takoradi. Now, the Twin City has collapsed because the railway system is not functioning the way it should. You remember that former President Rawlings did talk about some discussions he had with the Japanese to get the railway lines not only improved but extended. I believe that this is one major thing that we, were thinking seriously about. We haven't finished with our program at all. There's so many areas that we have to tackle. We had laid the foundation. I kept saying this, and we were hoping to put on the superstructure. But I know that Ghanaians will afford us another opportunity to be able to realize our objectives.
So specifically, there weren't any promises that you failed to fulfill as a government?
I believe that playback the thing that I said on the platform as the NDC flag bearer, I kept saying that I was not going to make any promises, simply because I was aware of the problems. I was aware of the difficulties. I was not going to make promises just to win election votes. No. I had been in the saddle for 4 years, and therefore I believe that I had some knowledge, which others did not have. But all that I promised was that we had come up with our manifesto. We had started a program, and I said we will keep reviewing those programs, make sure that those programs are taking root before making any new promises.
And going back a little bit, why did you think that positive message you had for Ghanaians didn't go down well enough to win you the presidency?
Well, at the time, we had quite a number of difficulties. And I've said elsewhere that I believe that the major problem confronting us was the economy. I mean, within a matter of months, the cedi had depreciated to such a level that it was very difficult to sustain it. It reached almost rock bottom. What is happening now only means that they cannot sink any further. That is all. But we had serious difficulties. I mean, it affected the ordinary Ghanaian. Cedi had gone from 2,400 to, the dollar had gone from 2,400 to almost $7,000. It had meant, therefore, that prices have gone up. It meant, therefore, that people were finding it even more difficult. And there appeared to be no end in sight. Here comes somebody who says, yeah, they are mismanaging the economy. When I come, I'll be able to reverse the trend. I'll pay a living wage. I'll abolish cash and carry. School fees. Yes, Mbobra struggle. Well, don't worry. I'm coming, and then I'll solve the problem. Honestly, it takes a very committed person. It takes somebody who says, till death do us part, not to be swayed by these promises.
But coming back on the present government again, the cedi has sort of stabilized against the dollar. What's your comment on that?
Look, find out what was the cedi to the dollar at the time we were there. Was it not 7,000? It's the same thing. I am saying that, some of these things, I mean, the value of the cedi is determined by two principles, supply and demand. If demand is low, you're going to find that it's not going to shake it in any way. We think that, let's wait. If it has stabilized, all well and good. But I really think that supply also has been controlled to a very great extent. But you see, unless we are in a position to generate more foreign exchange so that the supply side of the equation can go up, we're going to be saddled with this kind of problem for quite some time.
How could you have done it if the NDC had won the election as of now? What would have been the...
We talked about the need for us to increase exports, the need for us to try very hard, first to curtail demand, but have import substitution. This was one of the reasons, the major reason, that we decided to encourage the growing of rice in this country, quality grain, because we were importing, and we still do, $100 million worth of rice. We felt, therefore, that if this money could be spent on something else, it would be worth our while. This explains why we went into that area.
Right, if you just join us, talking to former Vice President, Professor John Evans Atta-Mills. Professor, some NDC activists or functionaries are currently being prosecuted. What's your comment on that?
I believe that it is the responsibility of the government to make sure that the laws are obeyed. Anyone who flouts the law must be brought to book. I don't have any problem whatsoever about this. Once there is clear evidence that the person has infringed the law, government has every right to do it. But I'm asking, therefore, that it should apply to everybody. There must be nothing which can be seen as selective justice, and we must also ensure that cases which are brought to court are cases which have substance. But we'll live to see. I cannot say anything, but I do not object to government trying to enforce the law. What I don't want is selective justice and cases being brought where you will not appear to have as much evidence as you should have, and therefore it might be misinterpreted as just a way of just letting people spend their time
In connection with these prosecutions or trials, some people, NDC sympathizers, allege witch hunting. Do you see it as witch hunting?
Well, let me tell you this. There have been quite a number of cases of unnecessary harassment. There have also been cases of witch hunting. Yes. I mean, not all of them will come to light, but I believe that if you talk to some of our people, I mean, they have had, cause, to complain. Some of us, when we least expected it, had been followed. Some of us, we have had, or we've had occasions where questions were being asked. In other words, you become a subject of interest, not as a matter of routine interest, but questions are being asked because you are NDC. But there have been clear cases of harassment at all levels. At all levels.
For example, any specific?
No.
Examples?
We have gone to the extent of having a press conference and giving you all examples. I don't want to regurgitate what has already been said. Yes, I want us to move forward.
And if the NDC had won an election so that it is the government in place now, will these trials have gone ahead?
But I think you are presupposing or being presuming that when the NDC was in power, no trials went on. Indeed, we had
trials of
NDC
government.
We had occasion to prosecute our own people. There was a deputy minister of transport and communication, Mr. Piazza. Yes, we prosecuted him. They involved in the coin thing. Yes, there were quite a number of people we prosecuted. Mind you, government, whenever there are any of these cases, the final say rests with the Attorney General. And I know that there were quite a number of cases, which were brought to court. But mind you, the cases were not brought to court because the person was NDC or NPP. They were brought to court because they felt that they had infringed the law. It happened that some of them were NDC. We did not discriminate in any way.
And in connection with this, sir, I would like to ask you about Dr. Yanka, the ECOWAS Bank president, and a recent case where the government expressed disinterest in that position, and the foreign minister actually said that because one of the reasons he gave is that because he's involved in a case back home, it wouldn't be good to keep him as an international civil servant.
In the case of Dr. Yankee, we were in government at the time when the ECOWAS ministers decided on the ECOWAS Bank. Because of the second monetary union, we decided that certain measures had to be put in place. One of them was the establishment of the ECOWAS Bank. When they met, the various positions were distributed among various countries. Ghana was given the presidency of the ECOWAS Bank, and Ghana was asked to select. There was an advertisement. 3 people came forward for the interview: Dr. Yankee, Mrs. Clark-Kwesi, and Mr. Manierson. Dr. Yankee won. He was offered his appointment before we left office. He was not chosen because he was an NDC. Now, I know for a fact that long before Dr. Yankee was even brought to court, some attempt had been made to get him to relinquish that position, and which means he has been presumed guilty. He should abandon this position. And all that it means is that just get anybody to court and then say that because he's in court, it means therefore that there are certain things that he cannot do because he's already a convict. That is most unfortunate.
So what should be done?
And honestly, to link it also with Dr. Chambers' appointment, I think it's even more unfortunate. Well, what should be done?
Yes.
Well, I believe that a second look should be taken about it. We have to be very objective about these things. After all, Dr. Yankee is a Ghanaian, a very highly qualified Ghanaian. I think that it should be worth our while to try and push our people forward. Yes, the NDC government spared no effort in campaigning very vigorously for the appointment of His Excellency Mr. Kofi Annan as the UN Secretary General. We did that because we took pride in the fact that a Ghanaian was going to occupy this position. I believe that, where we are all actuated by this kind of spirit, then the tendency, therefore, to appear to be taking certain decisions for reasons other than those in the noblest interests of this country, can be avoided.
Your former press secretary, Mr. Vincent Assisi, recently released a bombshell people consider a soap because he suggested that ex-President Rawlings should quit active politics. Do you subscribe to that?
Well, I really don't know what is meant by being involved in active politics. I mean, when you comment on affairs of state, that doesn't mean that you are in active politics. But let's face it, President Rawlings is a Ghanaian. President Rawlings has a wealth of experience behind him. I think that he is entitled to comment on affairs of state. I do not expect, and in fact the law does not allow President Rawlings to be a flag bearer again, or even a very, very high profile holder of a position in a party. But he is entitled to express his views on national issues. One should not attempt, therefore, to disqualify him because he has been an ex-president. Let's face it, if Kwame Nkrumah were alive, if Dr. Buzia were alive, if Dr. Dankwa were alive, we know what happened in the case of Dr. Lehman. Did he keep quiet? He formed even his own party. You may say that the circumstances are different. But when you have people who are the very foundation of parties, where people look up to, it is very difficult. You must give guidance to the people, who are following you. You must, from time to time, express views on this or that. So I really think that one must be able to draw a bold line of distinction. Yes, between what a person is entitled or has the liberty to do as a Ghanaian, as a citizen of this country, and what he is barred from doing because of some constitutional or other regulations.
Why do you think ex-President Rawlings was severely criticized by a lot of Ghanaians after his June 4 speech and then the famous BBC interview?
Let me say that so much under the bridge, since this thing happened, I really thought they would relegate it to the background of it. I was there at the time that he made those pronouncements. He should have been at the place to see the atmosphere. President Rawlings has always spoken like that. That is the way he is. That is the way he expresses himself. And, I have worked with him. A lot of us have worked with him for some time. I am convinced that he did not mean any harm. After all, we handed over peacefully to another government, something which is almost unprecedented in Africa. We helped very much to lay the foundation for democracy in this country. We invested in democracy. We should be the last people to see our investment go down the drain. You may not agree with what we said, but at the time that he made this, of course, there were people who were expecting that June 4th, President Rawlings would say something, and therefore I believe that even the editorials and the things were even written before he spoke. Yes. And I think, therefore, that it's important, therefore, to credit him, yes, with good faith, and also to know that he means well. That is all that I would say.
You mentioned his manner and style, and that particular manner and style, some people say, is unbecoming of a statesman.
Well, everybody is entitled to their own views. Yes, they are entitled to their own views, the way people speak, the way people express their views. I mean, you cannot change a person just because you don't speak that way or not. And in any case, I didn't find anything objectionable with his delivery of the thing. He tends to be very, very frank about certain issues. Some of us try to be diplomatic by hiding, the real intention. He is not that type. We were known as proactive in promoting our media relations as we should have done. There were all kinds There were all kinds of reasons, yes. Perhaps we could have done much better than we did. I will tell you.
How about the criminal libel law, which has been repealed and not so long ago? Why did your government maintain it?
Oh, but I'm happy that you use the word maintained. It had been with us since the colonial days. The predecessors of those who have repealed it, they didn't do anything about it at the time. Well, it has been repealed, and we hope that it will therefore help to lay down certain standards which all of us, will abide by.
I wanted to find out why you didn't repeal it, because you had the power to initiate the process.
But there are other laws on the books which we did not repeal. Why do you single this one out?
Because the media makes a lot of noise about it, or made a lot of noise about it.
There are other laws too that we could not tackle, because we had a lot of things on our plate also at the time. And I think also that you also look, it was our government who decided to liberalize the airwaves. We introduced a plurality of laws to help with newspapers, etc., etc. I believe that the foundation was being laid. You will also admit that the media has also come a long way. Yes, there are self-correcting methods which are being introduced. So I believe that clearly the atmosphere, the climate is being built upon. And if, therefore, this is a result, well, there's nothing strange about it. And mind you, NDC parliamentarians did not oppose it. We went along with them.
Yeah. And so what is the picture you can paint now, you want to paint now about the media presently?
Well, some of us have had cause to complain about some members of the media. That is true. Some clearly will have their own personal agenda. But I cannot generalize. Generalizations are very odious. I don't want to say this. But luckily, there are also checks and balances which are being introduced. And I hope that people will report news for what the news is worth, rather than target particular individuals and try to denigrate their efforts or trying to tarnish their reputation. I think that it's important that we all know that we have responsibilities as well as rights.
So you were in Ho recently, where the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation satellite station, the regional station, refused to give you an interview. How did you feel about it, sir?
I was disappointed. But there was a statement which is attributed to Mr. Uswando that I demanded that they interrupt their program. Anyone who knows me will know that I will not walk into a station and demand. I never even went close to them. We requested for an interview, not that we wanted their program interrupted. Well, it's come and gone, and I hope that we can all draw lessons from this. But I'm saying that it was rather unfortunate that this thing happened.
So what should the lessons be? What should the lessons be, for example, if you should go to the next door region, central region, where you come from, I believe, and then you would like to go on air there to speak to the people, to reach
if the state media would not have me, you have invited me, you have allowed me. I'll use some other means where I want to communicate to people. Yes. There may well be a time when they would want me to grant them an interview.
But in any way, what time would that be, sir?
Well, I don't know. But the state media, I also enjoined by the Constitution, yes, to grant reasonable access to their facilities. But of course, perhaps they understand the law better than we do.
Sir, tell me about your future. Are you going to retire from politics anytime soon?
Why talk about retirement? I haven't got to the retirement stage yet. I'm still under 60, and until the good Lord calls me, I'll try to do the things that I know I can do best. Yes, and that is all. But retire from politics. Well, I haven't thought about retirement, and I don't know whether at the moment I'm always involved in politics. Yes, I will continue to be a committed member of the NDC. There's no doubt. Wherever I find myself, yes, my commitment will always be evident.
So for all that it is worth, would you continue to be in politics forever, and I'm sorry to say, until you drop dead?
No, let me put it this way. I'll continue to be a member of the NDC until I drop dead, and serve it in capacities which I think I'm well equipped to serve him.
Are you interested in becoming the president of the Republic of Ghana in the future?
I don't have any future interest that I can talk to you about. No. You know, sometimes, inordinate ambition leads to the downfall of people. Let me also always say that if I should decide to serve in any capacity, I'll look at myself and see whether I can serve in that capacity.
But for now, do you believe you can serve in that capacity in the future as president of the Republic of Ghana?
No. If you should ask me, do I think that I have the capacity to serve? Well, I acted 4 years as vice president, and I also acted in the absence of the president. It's for the people of Ghana to decide whether they think that I have the capacity or not.
That certainly is part of your CV. I want to ask you about the tax system. What is wrong with Ghana's tax system, and what can be done about it as far as restructuring is concerned?
Well, I must say that I get rather amused when I hear about these things. Let's face it, I've been in tax for quite some time. The latest tax, we passed it last year. I believe that it's because people have not taken the trouble to look at the consolidated law that we have come out with. That is the most current. We have borrowed from all angles. There has been some grafting. There has been some amendment. There has been extensive borrowing from others in order to make sure that it is abreast with current development. I plead that they take a look at what the law that we have. But when people talk about improving the tax system, I believe that there is only one thing. How can we collect more? My brother and sister, there's only one answer to this. We can only collect more if we are all prepared to pay our taxes. Very often, those of us who are most vocal in denigrating the efforts of our tax collectors are the very ones who do not pay taxes. Go around. See the number of businesses that we have. Challenge any of us, those of us who have been fortunate enough to be educated by this country. How much tax do we pay? Look at all these buildings which are coming up. Look at all these properties which are coming up. How many of us pay taxes? I would want anyone who comments on the tax system, who does not appreciate the efforts of our tax collectors, to first of all show us what he has paid before he makes that comment. It will be most revealing. I believe it's not the law, it is our willingness and our ability to make sure that we give unto Caesar what is Caesar and to the Almighty what is Caesar.
That's coming straight and direct from the tax man. Sir, we have to end it now. Are you leaving soon for Canada for a year?
Well, it is for a cumulative period of 1 year, but I'll be coming in and out. I only did this, announced it, because somebody would have announced it and put a spin on it. After all, there are people who leave the country 1 month, come back, because they have assignments which cumulatively may be a year or two. But I just wanted to be candid with everybody and know that the total period is that. But you may find me in the country the next 2 weeks or next 3 weeks. It involves traveling and all of that.
Thank you very much, Professor, Your Excellency, Professor John Evans Atam Mills, former president of the...
Vice President.
Vice President of the Republic of Ghana. He has been my guest today. I am Phillip Nyakpo, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. It's been both a pleasure and an honor. May God help you. Thank you.